rectangular form is made up of two parts. You have A, which is the real part. This is the one before the sign in the center. And you have the imaginary part, which is at the end. This one is normally attached to I. So the imaginary part is attached to I, and the real part is the number that's in front. So this is what we mean by rectangular form. It must have two parts. So if the front part is 0, you must write 0. If the imaginary part is 0, it will be 0i. So it is noted as A plus BI. In this video, we are looking at rectangular form complex numbers. Solve for x if x squared is equal to negative 25. Now in pure maths, you would be this cannot be solved. In technical maths, we can continue. So x is equal to would mean that I have square rooted both sides. If I square root both sides, I will get a plus and a negative answer on the outside of the root sign. Notice that negative 25 is still under the root sign. For quadratic equations, you will always get a plus and a minus answer. So we apply the I, which is square root of minus 1, times the positive number. So the square root of 25 is 5, and square root of minus 1 is I. So we will get plus minus 5i. Notice that for rectangular form, it must be the real number first, followed by the number that's imaginary, which means in this case, x is equal to the real plus minus the imaginary. So since there is no real number, it will have to be 0 plus minus 5i. So the first number is the real, and the second one is the imaginary. Add and subtract complex numbers. Exercise 1.3. 1a, we have this question. Pause the video and attempt it on your own. This is a very easy example. So remember, with adding and subtracting, it is based on the concept of like terms, like grade 8 and 9. For example, 2x plus 3x is equal to 5x. So here, the I is like the x. So, what's underlined in orange? Those are the like imaginary terms. So, plus 16 minus 5 will give me 11i. So, our final answer is minus 7 plus 11i. Do attempt the next example first. Pause the video. First, we highlight those that are the like terms, and those are the real number part of the rectangular form. So that will be plus 6 minus 4, which will give us 2. Now we will look at the imaginary part. Those are also like terms. Minus 3 plus 2 will give us minus I. That's the final answer. Here's the example C. Now notice they've placed it in brackets, and when you have a negative in front of the bracket, you will have to change the signs within that bracket. So the first bracket remains the same, minus 6 plus 4i. The second bracket, we will get a negative times 3 will give us negative 3, and a negative times 5i will give us negative 5i. Then the next one is a plus in front of the bracket, which means that will remain the same. Please note, in the bracket it is minus 3 minus I. Next thing you can do is underline your like terms. These are the real numbers. Minus 6, minus 3 will give us minus 12. Many learners make a mistake here and they say minus 6 minus 3 is minus 3. Minus 3 minus 3 is 0. Please use your calculator. It is far more easier. So minus 5i minus I will give us minus 6i, plus 4i will give us minus 2i. Those are the real part, and these are the imaginary part, the ones with the I. Okay, exercise 1.3 follows. Right, here is A of exercise 1.3. Notice the first step is to group all the real and all the imaginary. These are the real numbers. So 2 minus 1 is 1. All the imaginary ones, let's think about it. What will it be? So we have minus 8i plus I will give us minus 7i. So the green is the real. The second part, underlined in orange, is the imaginary. This is what we call rectangular form, where there's a real number first, followed by the imaginary part. Notice in this example, we have a negative in front of a bracket. So when we have a negative in front of the bracket, we have to use the distributive property. So the first bracket will remain the same. A negative times 4 will give us negative 4, and a negative times a negative I will give us plus I. Notice that 4 minus 4 will give us 0, and plus I will give us not I squared, we are not multiplying, it will give us 2I. These are like terms. We have C. Notice again we have a negative in front of a bracket. In mathematics, you must always check for the negatives in front of brackets. This is the biggest mistake learners make. So the first bracket will remain the same. The second bracket will have negative times negative is a positive, so we'll get positive 11 plus positive 12i. Right? The next step will be to underline or to acknowledge which are the real part and which is the imaginary part. So that's our real, we'll get 21. Our imaginary part, we will get 32. So 20 plus 12 is 32. That's our answer. So the orange is imaginary. In the next example, again, we have a negative in front of the bracket, so these signs will change to the opposite signs. This will become negative 4. This will become positive 3i. The first bracket will remain the same. Multiplying, we will get, next bracket, we have a plus in front of the bracket. All that will remain the same. What's in the bracket? Next is to identify all the real numbers and all the imaginary numbers. If we add up all those real numbers, we have 3 minus 4 is minus 1, minus 2 is minus 3, and the imaginary part, we have plus 3 is 6i, minus 2i is 4i, and that is the imaginary part. So green is the real part, the front, and then the imaginary part on the rear. So first we write the real part, and second we write the imaginary part. Do not write this the other way around. Here we go. E. Pause the video. Do attempt this one. Notice once again we have a negative. So we can see at the end there we're going to get a positive 19i. So that first bracket will remain the same, plus 19i. The real part is minus 27 and the imaginary part will be 2i. G. Notice again we have the negative in front of the bracket. The first bracket will remain the same. apply the negative, the signs will change, and so a negative negative is a positive. Notice we have I squared in this example, and we know I squareds always break down into -1. And we have I to the 4. So here we're going to have to apply the previous knowledge of which we learned. So where we see I to the 4, we now placed -1. Where we see 2I to the 4, we should place I squared squared. Okay, so we should place I squared squared. So we have 2, 4 minus 2 is 2 minus 5I. Here we're going to get -1. Okay, so we're going to have -1. So plus -1 is -1. And so we're going to get 1 minus 5I. So where we have I squared, we're going to get -1 squared. Please note that this here was supposed to be a 2. So I squared squared. This was supposed to be a 2. I wrote a 4 by mistake. In the next example, we have this one. Do attempt it. It will be a long example. Pause the video. So remember, with these examples we have to break them into I squareds. So we get I squared to the power 4, which will give us I to the 8. We are short of an I, so add an I in. Then we'll have plus 2I. Now we have 2 to the 5th. We'll have to break that up. Now we have 2 to the 5th. That will give us 32. I plus 25I squared. I squared could be replaced with -1. And now we have 50I to the 100. Remember, we can break it up into I squared, and that will be to the power 50. So 2 times 50 will give us 100. So our answer there will actually be plus 50, because where we see I squared, we can place -1. Where we see I squared, we can place -1. So -1 to the 50 will give us a positive 1. So our answer there is plus 50. So here we have 25 times a -1 will give us a -25. And we'll have -32I plus 2I. And there we'll have 30I, because the I squared will be -1. -1 to the 4th power will be a positive 1 times I, 30I. So those are our like terms. Adding them up, we'll get 32I minus the 32I, and then we have numbers. So 50 minus 25. So 50 minus 25 is 25. 32I minus 32I will give us 0I. Our answer there is 25 plus 0I.